Mercedes have discovered a very interesting pattern ahead of the Suzuka GP that might help them a lot more than they could originally anticipate if they're able to extract it to the maximum potential. Now, the W15 has proved very difficult to handle, even though it is a huge step forward, but compared to the rest of the grid, it has so much road to cover. And the first move might be made as early as in Suzuka. With this in mind, how can Mercedes extract a very interesting heat pattern they discovered in Melbourne in their favour? And more importantly, is this the missing piece for both Russell and Hamilton? Now, it's safe to say that Mercedes struggled a lot during the Melbourne GP, with Hamilton retiring early while Russell couldn't get past Alonso and eventually flipped his car upside down in what seemed to be a brake check manoeuvre from the two-time world champion. But exiting the Melbourne GP with two drivers outside of the point did not kill the morale in Mercedes. Quite the contrary, they've already started to work on a fascinating pattern that they were able to extract from Melbourne regarding the heat of the car. According to James Allison, the Australian GP gave them a very interesting piece of information regarding the heat in the tyres and how it changes when the track starts to evolve, adding, "Almost no setup changes occurred between FP3 and qualifying in Melbourne, and we're starting to see a pattern emerge that most weekends we have a period in the weekend where we're feeling good about the car, confident about the car, but then in the paying sessions, in qualifying and the race, that slips through our fingers." If we were trying to draw that pattern together, then probably the strongest correlation that we can make at the moment is that our competitiveness drops when the track is warm, when the day is at its warmest, and therefore the tyre temperatures rise with those of the track. Well, this makes a lot of sense for Mercedes, but then again it doesn't help them a lot, because when you think about it properly, the team might not be able to add more performance to the car due to the fact that they have an issue with correlating the data from the wind tunnel to the on-track performance. Furthermore, Allison emphasized that this is an issue that will keep presenting itself for Mercedes due to the fact that they were not able to fully extract the maximum potential out of the wind tunnel or make it look exactly the same as the conditions they have on the track, which is a bit odd given the fact that no other team gave this specific explanation and excuse when it comes to data correlating issues. Of course, it's worth mentioning that the high-speed corner nature of the Suzuka circuit, especially in the first sector, so to dub it all on the tyre temperature and throw away the nature of the circuit is definitely an understatement to make. Regardless, if you are to compare the temperatures from Melbourne and Suzuka, you will notice that there is a significant rise in temperatures in Australia, which was also the case in Bahrain and Jeddah, even though the latter two were held at night. Now, in Suzuka, the air temperature is predicted to be around 20 degrees Celsius, and due to its low sea level allocation, you can always expect the rain to mess up the entire flow of the race. However, all of these conditions suggest that Mercedes will likely have a positive outcome, given the fact that they're not directly interfering with the increasing of the temperature in Suzuka. Quite the contrary, they're lowering it. And while it's known that Verstappen is the king of the rain when it comes to racing in damp conditions, the W15 could be an interesting machinery to keep an eye on after the disastrous 3 races they've had in 2024 so far. Furthermore, it's safe to say that Russell is the driver who enjoys driving the W15 much more than Hamilton. And this is not just an observation, it's a statement made by both British drivers. When talking about the car, Hamilton said that Russell enjoys it much more than him, and Russell went on to say that the fluctuations his teammate is receiving with the car is definitely not something on his end. Therefore, when talking about the experiments of the car and how the team is likely to do this on every remaining race in the 2024 calendar, it will likely be Hamilton's car only that will undergo these processes due to the fact that Russell is feeling a lot more comfortable in it. Even though fighting Alonso for P6 in Melbourne is not the ceiling that Mercedes wanted to reach with their new design in 2024. Wolff has also opened up on the latest issues that the W15 experienced and the worst start of the team ever since 2012. And when talking about this matter, he said that he's a firm believer that the team will turn things around because this time they're adamant the issue is not on their side or in a structural flaw with the car. It's just the fact that they don't understand what can be improved on what seems to be a solid platform to work on. Elaborating on this matter to a further extent, Wolff said, "As an Austrian, we very much wear our hearts on our sleeves, and we say things very directly. An Austrian says that's really bad, and a British person would say that's interesting. So I had to adapt the way I communicate in order to not create even more pressure on the team because it would break us. It's not because of a lack of trying that we're not competitive, so I'd rather be helpful and encouraging and not say that's interesting. I think we're coming to a point where we probably need to experiment with every single race, not only on Friday, because our performance seems to get worse throughout the weekend. We're good on Friday, then we're good on some of the sessions on Saturday, but the more grip we have, the faster it goes, the more we reach the performance ceiling of the car, and our data shows that it's not the ceiling. Well, judging by the last sentence of Wolff, you can understand how important it is to actually have a good correlation between the data simulation and the on-track performance of the car, because it effectively prevents the team from bringing upgrades, as they would have no idea how it will translate on the car when the real deal comes. Regardless of that, James Allison is adamant that there is a solution available right in front of their noses. It's just that they're still not understanding the primary root of the issues, which then again could prove to be the new design and all of the innovations that Mercedes brought in 2024 as well. Elaborating on this matter furthermore, precisely about fixing the issue for the upcoming races, Suzuka included, James Allison went on to say, "If you know what you're shooting for, if you have sort of identified correctly an accurate assessment of why our competitiveness waxes and wanes, then you can work into the weekend a program that's dedicated to trying to improve the temperature and the temperature balance front to rear in your favor and using all the conventional setup tools on the car. But if you conclude, having exhausted the degrees of freedom that you have available to you in setup terms, that you still need to go further, well then that gets harder at that point, because that will be that there are underlying characteristics in the aerodynamic map that you have engineered or the suspension characteristic that is aggravating that particular feature, and in order to make it really heal up nicely, then you would have to change those underlying features." Well, it does seem like Mercedes will have a lot of issues in experimenting with the car's design again, and that seems to pose even further issues with Lewis Hamilton, who was able to gather 8 points only from the first 3 races and is probably eager to hop into the Ferrari seat and see what the Maranello team has prepared for him. Regardless, there are 21 more races to go, and it doesn't mean that Mercedes has lost it all of a sudden, even though the data shows that they might have done so. And to think that Hamilton would be giving up all of a sudden without any particular reason is definitely an understatement for a champion of his caliber. So with all this in mind, do you think that the temperature fix in Suzuka would help Mercedes battle through their issues with the competitiveness of the car? And more importantly, do you think that Russell would be the driver who will lead the charge of the team despite his questionable habit of driving worse cars in a better manner? Let us know in the comments down below.